Thank you, Judge. My name is Bruce Reilly. I'm the Deputy Director of Voice of the Experience in Louisiana and a founding board member of the formerly incarcerated convicted people and families movement. We're a national coalition of grassroots organizations led by people directly impacted by mass incarceration. I myself am formerly incarcerated and been subjected to the various fees that have nickel and dime people back into prisons across America. Over 100 million American adults have a criminal record, and housing discrimination impacts entire families. Few things could have a greater negative impact on America as a housing industry that utilizes subtle gimmicks to negatively impact such a broad swath of our nation. People with criminal records get more denials and must submit more applications and pay more application fees. Due to policing patterns and structural discriminations at each stage of the criminal legal system, we are disproportionately Black, Latino, Indigenous American, people with disabilities, military veterans, people struggling with mental health, and LGBTQ people. Having multiple identities only multiplies the discrimination and the hurdles faced to live a decent life. We're often single parents, struggling with the poverty line, attempting to use housing vouchers, and may have conviction histories, and often paying fees and fines to courts, probation, or parole. We are the people to whom a junk or misleading fee carries the greatest negative impacts. Unless you're impacted or close to someone who is, it can be difficult to grasp the feeling of hopelessness and despair that comes with navigating our economy with a criminal record. And we appreciate the FTC taking up this issue of misleading junk and hidden fees, even if the impetus is not in regards to our specific population. We've been simultaneously working with HUD and PHAs for over a decade to reform their many policies which contribute to evictions, denials, homelessness, and recidivism. And over that time, we've seen considerable progress. In fact, a multi-year effort produced a recently proposed HUD rule takes on a comprehensive approach to our housing discrimination. And additionally, we pay fees on top of our fees. For example, an out-of-state company facilitates probation and parole fees here in Louisiana. There's no way to pay the fee without also paying a processing fee, which is as high as $7 per transaction. Phone and video calling services have a cascade of fees on top of fees. There's even a fee to return unused balances put onto prepaid accounts. Jails and prisons charge a fee to deposit money and a fee to withdraw funds after being discharged, neither of which are charged by banks in the free world. Despite the constitutional mandate to provide health care while incarcerated and having no alternatives, many jails and prisons charge medical copays at the equivalent of a week's salary. Despite the constitutional requirement of access to the courts, some institutions charge money to make copies so that people can even read the law that forms the basis of their detention or the pathways to their release. On top of that, the prices for commissary items are typically more expensive than ordering the same items from a local grocery store, even with delivery fees included. Transitional work programs keep as much as 75% of a person's earnings, while incarcerated laborers paid rates ranging from 2 cents to 50 cents an hour. This sets the foundation of the financial situation of the millions of people released from prisons and jails. Now, rental application fees are deceptive, misleading, hidden junk fees that goes to the heart of our societal stability, our homes. We interpret the FTC proposed rule as applicable to rental housing application fees, and we encourage the FTC to issue guidance on applying the rule in this context. These fees typically range from $40 to over $100, are illegitimate, excessive, deceptive, a deterrent, and steering people into certain neighborhoods. Now, they're totally illegitimate because what products or services charge an application fee for something they don't receive? Jobs? No. Colleges? There's low-income waivers. Purchasing a house? No. There's no background checks at hotels, none to rent cars or to buy homes. In this case, we are perversely subsidizing our own discrimination and exclusion. It's important to keep in mind that some of us have serious crimes from decades ago, while others have lesser crimes from last week. Whether we completed our prison sentence, were released on parole, or given an alternative to incarceration, the criminal legal system has considered us able to live in the free world, and to do that, we need a place to live. These fees are excessive. Police will charge $5 for a background check if you're going to volunteer at a school. $50 a year can get you an unlimited service for background checks. Predatory profiteering is an entirely unregulated area here, and some members of our organization suspected their units open simply to accept application fees. At $100 an applicant, processing one per day will yield more than collecting a monthly rent. One member reported that even after moving in, the landlord brought up their drug conviction from years ago as grounds for charging 4 times the security deposit. This was after being denied by dozens of places, paying dozens of fees, and even getting the refundable security deposits returned only after several months of pestering. These fees are deceptive. The housing industry refuses to be transparent with the admissions and denial matrix. Even lotteries must post your odds of being a winner. Consumer protection laws exist to inform us prior to making a spending decision for goods and services. How can we make an informed decision without knowing how far back a housing provider will look for a criminal record? What types of crimes they look for? Will they differentiate between being sentenced to prison or probation? Will they allow us an opportunity to present mitigating information? What are their hardline rules? In lieu of that, we get, you might be a winner. No certainty it is even being used as such, because some might just use a Google search, or are they simply putting our application in the trash as soon as we check the box for a conviction history, thus collecting a processing fee for this 10-second task? Landlords will receive $20,000 to $30,000 a year in rent. Some will pay staff on a realty service to fill a vacant apartment, and those are either paid hourly, annually, or as a portion of that rent. So these fees are just lagniappe income. A study done by the Fair Housing Action Center in Louisiana did a study of the landlords in the New Orleans metro region. Of 56 landlords tested, only 5 could even explain what criminal records would mean denial. Costs can be over $100 for an application. One allowed a refund when someone's denied, the rest did not. On top of the application fees are pet fees, cleaning fees, move-in fee, fees to put utilities in our names, repainting fees, and much more, all while holding a security deposit at the end, which is rarely returned despite the landlord providing zero upkeep on the property over the years. These fees are a deterrent. We have to apply to over 40 landlords, and many have done this and be rejected by all while being charged fees. By comparison, I personally applied to 32 law schools years after being released and received a fee waiver for each. I was accepted by one school and ultimately paid them roughly $200,000. If not for the fee waivers, I definitely would not have applied to so many schools and likely would not have applied to my alma mater. At some point, people run out of money to apply for an apartment, which they need 2 to 3 months rent up front. People stop trying, and so this discourages assimilation. So this is also potentially steering. It is unclear to what degree criminal records are serving as a proxy for race or just how segregated our communities are based on this gatekeeping practice. We're hopeful that HUD will begin putting testers in the field who have actual criminal records, and research may begin looking into the potential of an industry steering us into some of the unhealthiest parts of our communities, which may be food deserts, lack public transportation, have under-resourced schools, be near toxic waste emissions amidst decaying infrastructure. These landlords are not following the Fair Credit Reporting Act. People are not receiving notice that the report was used. There's no opportunity for one Mike Brown to say that I'm not that Mike Brown, and we deserve notice as to why we're denied and deserve a refund of our fee, if not an overall ban on collecting such a fee. These background check companies, as we know, are inaccurate. Expungements often are not taken off of our records. Many states have a first offender pardon, meaning if you get convicted the first time, it automatically will roll off your record, but that has to be something that's done by the background check company as well. Exonerations are often not taken off people's records. Arrests sit on people's records. And there's no evidence that criminal records are an indicator of our success as a tenant. These background checks are being marketed under false pretenses. There is evidence, however, that housing instability is a prime indicator of recidivism. And we've challenged practices in this industry on many fronts, in courts and in state houses and policy. And some of their lobbying entities will openly threaten that any additional regulations, such as forcing transparency in their exclusion policies, will result in higher rents. This recently happened in Louisiana in response to our state bill that would require notice prior to paying a fee and return the fee when someone's denied. We pursued this 3 years in a row. Many of these industry actors who rent to low-income people who engage in some of the most predatory practices are also receiving subsidies and tax breaks from the public. We're unaware of anyone who has dropped out of the program due to renters with conviction histories or based on regulations in this regard. Ultimately, we can't have a housing market driven by threats as a response to demands of fairness and opportunity. So in summary, people with convictions are treated as a captive market, subjected to monopolies and predatory practices. And once a family becomes trapped in a lifetime status of criminally convicted, it can be nearly impossible to evade the discriminations and added impacts of fees. And while we can't escape, more Americans join our ranks every day. If people have money and can't rent an apartment, people that have jobs, well, what are we going to do with the people who are struggling even more? This is only creating more segregation, an apartheid system, and how will we ever find stability across our country? The digital age has allowed for this type of discrimination on a granular level. driving us deeper into poverty through piles of endless fees and pushes us further and further from shore till eventually we lose sight of safety altogether. This does not increase our public safety. It increases stress, anxiety, drug use, and crime. Many amongst us are complicit in destabilizing America, all for the sake of profit. The housing industry is commerce. It needs to be regulated, and predatory profiteering must be eliminated. I'm unsure how many legislators, commissioners, and regulators are also housing investors. But if we can regulate food, drugs, stocks, ticket pricing, hotel fees, and enforce contracts, we definitely need to pay extremely close attention to a commodity as precious as people's homes. Thank you for hearing me today. That's all for my remarks.